I'm going to say something that might piss some people off, but I know it's going to save the right person. Most women are not failing at healing. They are trying to use one kind of support to solve a 3-stage problem in abuse and then blaming themselves when their life does not change fast enough. You're doing the real work. You are naming abuse, understanding trauma bonds, trying to regulate, trying to stop abandoning yourself and holding it together for your kids while still staying stuck. The self-blame part then starts. You decide that you are too attached, too broken, too weak, or somehow behind. That is not the real problem. Most people are handed one tool for a problem with a lot of layers. You can regulate your nervous system and then still be financially pinned. You can know exactly what is happening in abuse and still not have enough leverage to move. You can leave and still feel pulled towards familiar love because relationship patterns do not disappear just because the relationship ended. None of this means your healing is fake or your progress does not count. It means you're missing a stage of recovery. I do not just help women heal from abuse. I help women become emotionally, financially, and relationally free. And that is a different job with a different path. That is why my work looks the way that it does right now. If you've ever looked at my stuff, my content, my programs, and thought, okay, I get it, but how do these pieces actually fit? This is the episode that is going to help you get the answers that you need. I'm the type of coach who wants to show you, not tell you. I was not building a brand and a business first. I was building a way out. This came from my real life, and then I helped other women do it. My marriage was my second abusive relationship, and this matters to the story because I was not brand new to the signs. I clocked it early, and I wanted out the moment that I got here. I had a plane ticket to go home, and then I found out I was pregnant, which changed everything. Now there was a baby coming. There was also a dog. I was not working. It was COVID. I had some savings, but that was all that I had. The question stopped being, what is this? And it became, how do I get out of this with no support? That is the mismatch that I'm talking about. It was not lack of awareness. I was staring at a situation I already knew was wrong, and I was trying to figure out how to move through it without a clean exit and without the conditions to move yet. This is why I care so deeply when women tell me they know what this is and still feel stuck. I believe them because I know exactly what that feels like. Knowing is one thing. Having conditions to get out and have an exit is another. Everything that I share with you and everything that I built is in an intentional order. I had to do the emotional exit work while I was still in it. Then I built financial autonomy so I had real options. And after, I rebuilt my relationship patterns when I got out so I did not recreate the same pain in my body. That is a sequence and a pathway to freedom. Once you understand the stage that you are actually in, your move gets to be more. Once you understand the stage that you are actually in, you understand what your next move needs to be. Your self-trust comes back online and you stop trying to force breakthroughs in the wrong area. You stop using healing language to beat yourself up and stop making your stuckness feel like you're broken. You see the real bottleneck, and once you can see it, you get to choose the right support, which will change how your life goes moving forward. I'm Meaghan Webster. I'm an abuse recovery coach, a trauma-informed strategist, and the woman a narcissist hopes to never meet twice. Today, I'm going to walk you through the 3 stages of abuse, how they actually show up in your life, and how to tell where you are right now. I am going to also thread my story throughout this because I do not want this to sound like a framework. This is the order that I had to live to get free, get out, and stay free. So if you've been doing the deep work and you still feel stuck, I want you to hear me say this before we go any further. This is not failure. It is probably an abuse stage mismatch. And if that is true, there is nothing wrong with you. But the next step that you need has not been given to you yet clearly. A lot of people will try to heal alone. I said this before on my social media, and I will never stop saying it. Abuse happens in isolation. Healing happens in community. Healing matters. Nervous system work matters. Trauma education matters. Listening to what happened to you matters, especially after gaslighting, because for a lot of women, the first time they hear words for what they lived through, they stop feeling so insane. It's not small. It feels like you're taking a breath for the first time after a long amount of time underwater. I do teach that work, and I will always teach that work with my clients. So this is not me saying that healing doesn't matter, but it is me saying that healing becomes becomes an incomplete solution for people who treat it like the entire plan. That is a problem. It's not healing as a problem. It's an incomplete pathway. A lot of women will come into my world in pain, and what they first get will be recognition. They finally understand the patterns. They understand the trauma bonds. They understand why they feel attached to someone who is still harming them. We walk through why they freeze, fawn, overfunction, or second guess themselves, or go back and forth. That recognition can feel life-changing because it starts breaking the shame and confusion. But there is a point where recognition starts getting mistaken for relocation. Now you understand more, but your life has not moved yet. You can explain the abusive dynamic perfectly and still be in the same house. You can name the manipulation and still have no control over money. And you can still have a breakthrough and wake up in the same logistics, fear, custody stress, financial dependence, and the same body carrying all of it. This is where self-blame starts. What is wrong with me? I know what this is, and yet I'm still here. Maybe I don't want it bad enough. Maybe I'm addicted to X, Y, and Z. Maybe I really do love him. Maybe all of this work that I'm doing is not working. No, sometimes the work is working exactly where it's supposed to, but you're expecting it to be solved at a different stage of abuse. This is why I'm being so hard on this. It's not because I do not respect healing. I know where to put it in its right place and stop asking it to carry jobs that belong to leverage or relational recalibration later on. If a woman is emotionally clear but still financially strapped, that is not proof that she needs to heal harder. It means that she needs financial autonomy and exit infrastructure. If a woman is out and functioning and still getting pulled back into familiar relational patterns, that is not proof of her early recovery work failing. It might mean she's at a different stage that requires a different layer of work. This is where women lose years of their life, and I hate that for them because they are not lazy. They are not clueless. They are working their asses off. They are trying. They are reading. They are listening. They are journaling. They are praying. They are regulating. They are doing the work. But because no one mapped the stages for them personally, very clearly, they are using the wrong tools for the problem in front of them. This is what creates shame, exhaustion, that brutal feeling of not being smart enough to understand what is happening and still not being able to change your life. I know that feeling. I know what it feels like to be super self-aware and still trapped in practical reality. To look functional on the outside while internally you are doing risk math, reading moods, planning around reactions, and trying to keep everything standing while your body is screaming, and to have real insight but still not feel free yet. The first abusive relationship that I was in was 4 years. It took me 11 times attempting to leave until I stayed out, okay? This episode matters to me, and I'm going to be passionate about it because if someone had sat me down and said, Meaghan, you are not failing. You are trying to solve a 3-stage problem with one type of support, it would have saved me years and a whole lot of back and forth. Plus, I would have known the patterns and wouldn't have wound up in a secondary narcissistic relationship. I would have known what the bottleneck was. It would have made my next moves clearer. So that's what I want for you. At the end of this episode, you're going to understand the 3 stages after abuse, my lived experience, the way that I teach them now, okay? Stage 1 is emotional exit and stabilization. Stage 2 is financial autonomy and leverage. Stage 3 is relational recalibration and power. And before you panic and think, great, now I have to fit perfectly into one box. No, it is very possible to be in more than one stage at one time. Some move back and forth. Some are mostly in stage 1 with bleed through into another. This is very normal. It's not about forcing ourselves into a label. This is about identifying the primary bottleneck so you stop fighting the wrong battle first. We are going to start with stage 1. This is where most women first find me, and it's also where the deepest layer of shame lives. You can see it, but you still feel stuck. It's hard to explain to people who have never lived it because from the outside, it can look like indecision, inconsistency, even denial. And from the inside, it feels like your body and mind are fighting you while you're still expected to function like everything is normal. In this stage, you may know that it's abuse and you may also still question yourself. You might have moments of crystal clear truth and then get pulled into guilt, confusion, minimization, fear, hope, panic, or self-doubt. You might hear yourself say this is not okay and you're trying to regulate the situation, keep the peace, prevent escalation, smooth things over, or talk yourself out of what you know because the fallout feels too big. The trauma bond is not a concept in this stage. It is an active pull in your body. And your nervous system can be so lit up that basic things feel impossible while life still expects you to function normally. You have kids to care for, work to do, a house to run, messages to answer, dinner to make, and often has to look normal enough that nobody asks any questions that you do not have the capacity to answer. You are not just thinking about leaving. You are carrying the chaos inside of your body trying to survive another day. This is also a stage where you might be getting brutal with self-judgment. You call yourself weak because you haven't moved out yet, stupid because you went back into a conversation you swore you would never have again, pathetic because you still react or freeze or get pulled into explaining yourself, and crazy because you feel how distorted everything is, but you cannot hold on to the truth for long. This has nothing to do with weakness. Stage 1 means that your body, your identity, your attachment, and your daily reality are still entangled in abuse. This isn't about your character. This is a condition that you are currently living inside. Your first job in stage 1 is stabilization. This is why I have my membership. The Reinvent, Rebuild, and Redeem space is not about healing content. It is emotional exit work, nervous system stabilization, trauma bond breaking, self-trust understanding, identity repair, and pattern breaking and healing. It teaches women how to create safety in their own bodies while external life may still be abusive, messy, uncertain, dangerous. And I teach you how to stop abandoning yourself in real time before your life actually changes. That is a huge distinction between most coaching programs. A lot of women think leaving starts the day that you physically go. This is an internal exit first. It starts when you stop automatically handing your reality over to his version of events. When you feel your body getting activated and you learn to stay with yourself instead of making that activation mean his story is true. When guilt stops controlling every decision. When confusion stops wiping out what you know. And when you begin trusting your own perception again, even if your hands are still shaking. That is emotional exit. For me, stage 1 is the beginning of the work. For me, stage 1 got a lot heavier after my son was born. The abuse escalated. He disappeared more often than not. There was a lot more conflict. The load on my shoulders got a lot bigger, and the manipulation landed harder because I was already depleted and raw in that season of life. I was in my first year of sobriety. I was caring for Hunter. I was managing our dog who needed specific training because he was aggressive. I was cooking, cleaning, running the house, carrying the mental load, and trying to keep the day moving. And I was doing all of that while experiencing financial, emotional, and psychological abuse. From the outside, we looked like a happy family that was functional. I was getting things done. I was handling what needed to be handled. I was showing up. Inside, my body was carrying grief, anger, confusion, all at once. This was a season of my life where I looked functional, but I had no idea what I was going to get hit with next. And I don't mean physically, but I was trying to hold it all together while being a mom. I was not sitting around unaware. I do not lack intelligence. I was carrying pressure, confusion, and fear in a body that still was required to keep moving. So when I talk about things like nervous system stabilization and emotional exit in RRR membership, I'm not talking about a concept. I'm talking about the real work that helps women come back home to herself while life is still demanding everything from her and she can still be experiencing abuse. There's a lot of women that will judge themselves for how they functioned in this stage. They think if they are strong enough, they would have just left. That if they really knew it was abuse for sure, they would be more decisive. That if they were more healed, they would not be so affected. That is not how this works. When your nervous system is in chaos, your decision making gets hit. When your attachment is activated, your self-trust gets hit. When your reality is being distorted repeatedly, your perception gets hit. When your life is structured around managing another person's mood, your body will reorganize around survival of that person. You are not imagining these things. The problem is that adaptation starts looking like your personality if you stay in it too long. Overfunctioning, hypervigilance, people-pleasing, fixing others, second-guessing. This is all part of stage 1 of understanding. This is why stage 1 has to include identity repair, not just calming down your body. Because if all you do is learn to regulate, but you never rebuild self-trust and identity, you will still be easy to manipulate more than you realize. This is why I use the phrase emotionally ungovernable. And I want to help you understand that because I think a lot of people assume it means loud, reckless, untouchable, or performative. That is not what I mean. Emotionally ungovernable means that you are less controllable through guilt, panic, confusion, coercion, or manipulation. This is essentially your foundation. Stage 1 work can feel very deep, very real, and it is life-changing, but it is not the whole exit. You can still do all of this and hit a wall if the next bottleneck that you need to clear is leverage. You can trust yourself more and not have the resources to move safely. You can be emotionally clear and still not have control of your own finances. You can know exactly what you need to do and still need more time, more money, more privacy, more skill, or more structure to do it. It does not mean that you are failing stage 1. It means that stage 1 did its job and you are ready to step into stage 2. And again, this is where a lot of women will shame themselves because they think, why am I still stuck if I've done so much work? If you are in stage 1 of abuse recovery right now, the win is not that your whole life changes by tomorrow. The win is that you get to stabilize enough to think clearly, trust yourself, and stop disappearing back into the chaos. That your internal mechanism is choosing to leave even though the external pieces are still in the same place. It's not small, but that is where your freedom will start. And if that is you, if you are in it and you are questioning yourself, questioning if this is abuse, you just want to leave, or your body doesn't understand what's happening, this is the work that we do inside of the RRR membership. Emotional exit work, stabilization work. The kind that will help you stop feeling like you're crazy and start allowing you to come back home to yourself. The next part of this is stage 2. The conversation is going to change from internal stabilization to financial leverage. And this is the part that nobody is willing to teach. Before I was an abuse recovery coach, I have been a business coach for almost 5 years. So when I talk about things like financial leverage, it's not just my lived-in experience. I've had hundreds of clients in a completely separate business in a totally different niche that is founded on helping you make money. So for you, stage 2, you now need leverage. This is where a lot of women will get misread or judged because the outside world keeps treating this like it's a character problem when it is a power issue. This is a stage where women know what is happening. You are not sitting in confusion the way that you were before. You are not looking for one more post to prove the abuse. You're not asking yourself every 5 minutes if you're overreacting. You know enough now. You see it, you feel it, you understand what this is costing you, and you need a way out or enough independence that you are no longer financially exposed to staying or going back. Your bottleneck in stage 2 is financial leverage. I need people to stop saying that financial autonomy and abuse recovery are separate. Money is not an extra chapter that you deal with later on after a breakthrough. That kind of thinking is going to keep you trapped because the conversation around the emotional toll while the control is still practical means you can understand exactly what's happening but still stay stuck. One expense can put you in panic. One financial hit can make the risk of leaving feel bigger than the pain of staying. That is not a failure at healing. This is what happens when you are in financial abuse. A lot of women will also get called inconsistent, attached, or self-sabotaging. And I'm going to say this very fucking clearly because it's wildly incorrect. A lot of what people label inconsistency is a woman doing risk management for timing, safety, and consequences with very limited options. She's not changing her mind because she loves this. She is calculating. She is watching what happens when he escalates. She then looks at the bank account. She's trying to figure out how to feed her kids, how to move without triggering a bigger fire before she has what she needs. That is a leverage problem. Your stage 2 of healing is freelance to freedom. It is part of the abuse recovery when your life stops being held hostage by financial exposure. When I say the words freelance to freedom, I am talking about your financial autonomy, under the radar income, skill building that creates options, leverage, buying power, structural autonomy, and external escape infrastructure. I became a virtual assistant, and this is how I funded my way out. I built it because that's what I needed. And I want to be very direct about this. I am not telling you that money is going to solve everything for you emotionally. I am saying that no money keeps a lot of women trapped longer than what they want to be, and then they get judged for the survival choices they make inside that trap. I do not care how self-aware you are if you are financially pinned. Insight does not pay for gas, childcare, a lawyer, or a way out. If your day-to-day expenses are tied to him, your nervous system already knows that. Your ability to leave a bad day depends on whether you can afford the next move, and your nervous system knows that already. This is why women can look clear in one conversation and frozen in the next. The body is tracking the consequences. It's doing the risk math. This is a space where shame gets vicious because you start thinking, I know better than this. Why am I still here? Why am I not moving faster? Why do I keep getting pulled back into fear when I was so sure yesterday? The answer is nothing more than financial dependency. If you missed the Forge in the Fire series, I tell you exactly how I built a business inside of my abusive marriage. The first month that I was in my virtual assistant business, something shifted for me so freaking hard. I am an ex-bartender with a grade 10 education. I had $1,000 left in my savings. Not only did that business make me money, it's what that money meant. I had proof of concept, proof of work, proof that this was possible. And that changed my nervous system more than anything because it moved me out of fantasy of leaving into the reality of power of choice. I was no longer hoping there might be a way out anymore. I had evidence in my hands. I knew this could work, and if I kept going, this would be my exit plan. That certainty changed how I felt in my body. It made me more focused, more comfortable continuing, and more able to trust the path because it was no longer something that I was dreaming of. It was real. Is stage 2 work. Before you have leverage, your whole life gets organized around what could go wrong. You think in survival gaps. You make decisions based on immediate fallout, not long-term freedom, because immediate fallout is what will burn your life to the ground when you are under-resourced. You tolerate things longer than you want to because the cost of moving too soon feels like another emergency, and people who have never lived that will call it indecision. I will never forget what that felt like. I know what it's like to function while constantly tracking money and timing and consequences, how to carry motherhood and pressure and abuse all in the same hand. I know what it feels like to need options before making certain moves and having judgment of other people while being under a ridiculous amount of stress. It's why I created Freelance to Freedom. This is one of the first shifts that you can make with exactly who you are right now inside of your own home that will create breathing room for you. It is income that will start changing your internal reality before it changes your actual life. This is what will happen for you when money stops being a source of panic and starts becoming an option. I will never state that creating a business is easy, but I am telling you that what you have right now, yourself in your home with internet, a computer, a tablet, a cell phone, skill, and my strategy, you will be able to make the changes that your body needs. Your thinking, your planning, your timing, and what you are willing to tolerate will absolutely change. When you have money, the conversations you are willing to have and what boundaries you can hold is now different because your life is no longer built on the same level of exposure. I have so many examples of clients that I'm going to put up on my social media that have talked about this publicly. The first real taste of leverage, it's not just money, it's space. You stop negotiating with yourself because your decisions are no longer all being made under the threat of abuse. This is your exit infrastructure. I'm not teaching this to you so you become the best businesswoman ever. I'm helping you build something that is private, powerful, can create material options for you, and it stops organizing every life detail around fear. I help women create leverage in a way that respects the reality that they're living in, especially when they cannot afford to just walk out when they want to. This is trauma-informed work. A lot of business coaches assume safety, and a lot of healing content ignores logistics. Freelance to Freedom sits in a place where real life happens. It is for women who need income, skill, and options while still navigating abuse. It's for the women that know just leave is not an actual plan. For the women who need to build autonomy without announcing it to everybody. This is not a confidence problem. The real issue is financial dependency, and you will keep working on the wrong thing and then shaming yourself for not moving. Confidence doesn't help you leave, but it will grow when your life gets safer and your options become tangible and real to you. It is a very powerful moment when your survival is no longer tied to the person that's harming you. I am not interested in performative empowerment. I am interested in helping you build actual financial autonomy. This is why stage 2 is not optional in this pathway. Stage 1 will stabilize you. Stage 2 gives you options. Without stage 2, you can go and do all of the beautiful emotional healing work and still be one emergency away from staying in the same cycle or getting pulled back in because your life is still materially vulnerable. It's not a failure of healing. It is a consequence of missing the stage that changes what's possible. Stage 1 is where you begin to leave internally. Stage 2 is where your external life starts catching up to what you already know. This is where your decisions stop being only emotional and they start being practical resources. This is where your future stops being a wish and starts becoming a tangible plan. In this stage, you're going to feel the difference between understanding freedom and building it yourself. If this is a stage where you are right now, that money is keeping you stuck, silent, vulnerable, scared to move, that is not proof that it's not working. It is your cue that you are in stage 2 of abuse recovery. That is freelance to freedom work, financial autonomy, and exit infrastructure. Before we get into stage 3, I want to bring some full awareness to the forefront. Getting out changes your environment, but it does not automatically rewire what your body recognizes as love, safety, or power. This is where stage 3 begins. You are out and you do not want to repeat the pattern. A lot of women will get blindsided here because they thought getting physically out and emotionally out was the finish line. This is where old patterns will show up later on, and it makes them feel like they are back at the beginning. They are not back at the beginning. They are at a different stage with a different job to do. This is for the woman who is out. She made it out legally, physically, emotionally. She feels more stable. She's functioning, working, parenting, and rebuilding, and her life may look strong from the outside. She has certainly done real recovery work. She may be someone that people call inspiring. Then she starts dating again or opens herself up to connection and something old pulls her back. She ignores the red flags she swore she never would ignore again. She feels chemistry with someone who's inconsistent. She starts over-explaining herself. She then starts chasing, proving, trying to earn love and safety. She knows better and she still feels that pull. That is the moment a lot of women will panic and turn on themselves. They will believe that none of the healing work worked. I'm repeating everything again, and I should be farther along than this. This is stage 3. This is not the same problem as stage 1 abuse recovery. It is not the same bottleneck as stage 2. This is relational recalibration, which means rebuilding what your body recognizes as attraction, safety, power, desire, and standards in real time. Leaving the abusive relationship does not automatically update your relational wiring. It removes the person, not the pattern. This is why the Black Cat Academy exists. It is not entry-level recovery, basic dating advice, or how to spot red flag conversations. It is post-healing power, relational recalibration after survival. It is discernment, desire, standards, power dynamics, and relational sovereignty. It is the work that will teach you how to stop confusing familiar activation with alignment. A lot of women, myself included, leave one harmful relationship and then get pulled into another version of the same pain, not because they're stupid, not because they want suffering, but because their body still reads around certain dynamics as normal, exciting, or compelling. Intensity can feel like chemistry when your nervous system is trained in chaos. Inconsistency can feel magnetic when you spent years trying to earn closeness. Being chosen by someone who's emotionally unavailable can still feel like a win when your old wound is still running underneath your standards. All this is a pattern that needs to be broken and healed. The conversation has to be more advanced because stage 3 women are often smart, self-aware, capable, and outwardly strong. They can identify manipulation and content, teach boundaries to somebody else, and have language for what's happening in their past and still override themselves in a moment because knowing a standard and holding a standard is not the same thing when attraction, desire, loneliness, hope, and old patterning come back online. This is why the Black Cat Academy is in stage 3. The RRR membership is the foundation because it stabilizes the body and rebuilds self-trust. Freelance to freedom is the bridge because it builds leverage and external autonomy. And the Black Cat Academy is the finality because that's where power gets refined and lived. This is where standards stop being words on Instagram and something your body can actually hold. Where desire stops costing you your self-respect. Where discernment stops being a checklist and becomes an embodied pattern of intelligence. This is where power dynamics stop running in the background without your awareness. And this is where you stop performing strength and start living it inside of your relationships. I will always be open and transparent about my own healing journey. I never want somebody to look at me and think I'm healed. It's not even something that I believe in. Healing is a forever journey, and that is not useful to you in any three of these stages. My stage 3 was not about learning how to spot the red flags all over again. It was about catching patterns in real time inside of a healthy relationship and choosing differently. Some of my deepest patterns have been caretaking and self-abandonment. I can go into fix-it mode fast. I make myself responsible for everything. I start trying to figure out what needs to be handled until I disappear doing it. That pattern didn't just show up in my dating, it showed up in my work, in motherhood, in legal stress, all of it. So I was not confused whether a man was treating me badly. It was me noticing old wiring while being with someone that was safe and present. A simple example of this: my boyfriend and I both have businesses. He is busy, as am I, but sometimes if I haven't heard from him in a while, my brain can go to an old story. I can feel that line of thinking start, and suddenly my mind is asking if something's wrong, if I did something wrong, or if he's pulling away. It has nothing to do with that. That comes from my past, from having people give me silent treatment, from old betrayal and old pain trying to narrate my current moment. The Black Cat work for me is catching that and bringing myself back. This has absolutely nothing to do with my boyfriend. This is all about my past. Another pattern for me was earning. It's such a deep pattern from childhood and abusive relationships that love and safety had to be earned by being good, by doing more, by saying the right thing, by performing, by proving. So even in an incredibly healthy relationship, I've had moments where my mind will be like, what else should I do to deserve what is already being given freely? That is a pattern, not actual truth. I have to come back home to myself in real time, and I remember I do not perform for love and respect. I do not earn basic care. I can just exist as I am in this world and still be loved and appreciated. I have a funny moment that I will share with you. Something had happened with my ex-husband and lawyers, I think, and my boyfriend had offered me space to talk. He was simply just offering space to talk and be present with me, not asking anything of me. And I went into mental gymnastics. I was pacing around my apartment. Should I actually call him? This was heavy and ugly. Maybe I'd cry. My fear wasn't about my boyfriend. It was my fear of being too much, that being vulnerable would change how I was seen by him. Again, that fear came from my past, not my current relationship. This is why breaking patterns matters so much. I made that phone call. I cried on that call. He held space for me. It gave my nervous system new information to understand if I break the pattern, if I stay in the present. The awareness piece is one thing, but catching the pattern and not obeying it and allowing a safe moment to stay safe is where it'll internally change for you. That is relational sovereignty in real life. I often hear from my clients in this stage that they still feel embarrassed that they are out dating and they are still dealing with old things from their past. Please do not judge yourself for what you are going through. If you are out and stable and you are now seeing the next layer, it does not mean that your earlier recovery work failed. It means that your earlier work worked well enough to get you here, but now the job changes. It's the whole point of this episode. It changes by the stage. The support changes by the stage. The bottleneck changes by the stage. So when you stop treating every problem like it should be solved with the same kind of support, your growth will maximize and your shame will lose oxygen. Stage 1 is where you stop calling chaos your identity and you begin your emotional exit. Stage 2 is where you build leverage so your life has options. Stage 3 is where you rebuild relationship patterns so your freedom becomes sustainable and your standards stop collapsing under old patterns. This is the stage where a lot of women become the version of themselves they were trying to be the whole time. Not just safe and out, but powerful, clear, alive, and fully owning their own life. If that is where you are, you're out, stable, and done repeating relational patterns. That is the Black Cat Academy work. This is not beginner healing. This is power reconfiguration. I hope you take some time today after this episode to sit and think about what stage you are, and remember, you can be in two places at once. I hope that it gave you some direction, because this episode is not meant to make you nod and smile and say, yes, that's me, and then go back to shaming yourself tomorrow. I want you to know exactly where you are, what your actual bottleneck is. I want you to stop using the wrong tool and calling yourself the problem. Most women are not failing at healing. They are missing a stage. That is the category of claim of this episode, and I stand by it because I have lived it and coached hundreds of women to see their patterns clearly so they can set themselves free. Some of you will hear all three stages in yourself because your life is not neat, and that's okay. You might be mostly in stage 2 but still need some stage 1 support on hard days. You might be in stage 3 and still feel old stage 1 activation when a relationship trigger hits. That does not mean the framework is the support is wrong. It doesn't mean anything other than the fact that you are a human being. I'm not trying to force you into a perfect category. I'm trying to help you identify where you are at in your life and if you have the ability to control your choices, because that's where your next move lives. If this episode cracked something open in you good, that means you are not just listening, you are evolving. Please share this with another woman who needs to hear it. Hit follow so you do not miss the next one. Please send me a DM on Instagram and tell me what landed the hardest for you. If you're still inside it, just left, or you are still in chaos, please start with the RRR membership. If you know that money is a thing that is keeping you stuck, silent, or vulnerable, please take a look at Freelance to Freedom. If you are out, feeling stable and safe, and done repeating old relational patterns, the Black Cat Academy is your next stage. Different doors, one liberation pathway. This is the Narcissist Worst Nightmare podcast.